let me just go ahead and introduce you, and then we'll just get started. Is that okay? That's a badass shirt, by the way. I'm
I
having
knew Harry was gonna love it.
no.
Yeah.
God, I wish I could pull it off. I'm getting it. I don't
Oh,
know. I
you
probably
can always
could.
pull it off, dude. You
I
got
don't
that.
know. I need to get more confidence. But great shirt,
Thank you.
and ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat today because I'd like to welcome to the show John Mixon, who's the Senior Director of CPG Analytics at Tabs Analytics. And what I like and admire about John is that not only is he familiar with the data that we all get in the industry, but he actually understands the data and can tell us the stories behind the data. Is that an accurate, you think, representation, John?
I certainly strive for it. Yeah. I mean, the data is obviously complex, and in spirits, of course, especially, you see this like array of different. I mean, the route to market itself makes it so challenging, right? To make the
Right.
data universe easy to make sense of. And so, yeah, I love it. And, I love a good cocktail. So
Right.
it doubles
Right.
down as being a great thing.
You're right. It's not like, even non-alc beverages you think would be similar, but they don't have control states. They don't
Right.
have certain states where it's only sold in package stores and some states where it's not, and blah, 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 blah. But,
Exactly.
John has also worked at notable companies in the past, including Amazon and Sprint. And I want to thank you, John, for appearing on BeerNet Radio. I know that you know that this is the podcast where all your dreams come true. And
Yeah.
we're going to
Is
try
that
and
our
make that.
catchphrase, Harry?
Oh, yeah, it is. It has been for a while. Hannah, you're tipping your hand that you haven't watched the podcast in the last 6 months.
I'm gonna be so for real. Like John was like, "Oh, I've been listening to the last couple episodes, getting caught up," and I'm like, "That makes one of us."
Oh, wow. What a glow. You know what, though? I know you're busy because I've been working with
Girl,
you for the past month. And so
yeah,
you get a free pass on that.
yeah. I just
So
have I. It's like I don't want to think about work after
no,
6 p.m. Like,
no, no, no. Well,
Well,
Hannah is coming up. She's in Boulder. I'm in San Antonio. John, where are you?
I'm in Seattle, Washington.
Cool.
Big Pac Northwest guy. So,
Nice. Is it raining
yeah.
today?
No, today is the quintessential perfect day, which is so perfect about being in the Northwest. Like everybody thinks. I literally was on a training call earlier today, and the guy was like, "Oh, he was in like St. Louis or something." He's like, "Yeah, it's probably the same weather we have here that you have. It's like gray and dreary and drizzly out." And I'm like, "We're supposed to hit 70, and like there is not a cloud in the universe in my
Oh my
world right now. It
gosh.
is perfect.
And,
nice.
and by the
Perfect."
way, whoever was trying to front about St. Louis, yes, it's dreary, but it's humid also and hot.
Right.
So I would rather have Seattle any day.
It's
So,
the best.
all right. Well, Hannah,
Is
I'm
this?
gonna pass it to you, and you can y'all can get started because let's get into it.
Yeah, yeah. And John, you have experience working in the bev industry as well, right? You were at Mike's
Yeah,
Bar.
that's right. Yeah, I was with Mark Anthony Brands for quite a while, actually. So this is pre-White Claw,
Hmm.
back in the Mike's Hard Lemonade days, post-launch. So not like the hard uptick on the hockey stick, but after it got to market and just, exploded, I joined the company when they moved the headquarters here to Seattle, actually. And this is like 2004 or five time frame.
Hmm.
And it was amazing experience. What a like one of my most favorite career experiences, honestly. It was a great place to work and really exciting to learn and get a part of the industry at that level and with a company where you were, having to ride the challenges of the three-tier system from a point of view that's a little different than, one of the major suppliers, and especially at that time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
I don't know if you listened to the last podcast, but we talked about mics
I
because
did.
I think it really is the one of the fastest growing brands in bev alc at that time, and then they did it again with White Claw. So
Yeah.
clearly they're doing something right over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony von Mendel loves to innovate. He's really big on trying to, to try to be. I just think he prides himself on it. He loves a great product, And it was great to be around that actually in that era of time. It was really an enjoyable place to work.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Okay, so I think from like the conversations that we had leading up to this, you pulled out a really kind of salient point about kind of comparing like how much, and we're all sort of aware of this, right? Like that RTDs are like the ones is this segment driving spirits trends, etc. But I think you put it into a cool perspective, thinking about the total Bev Alc universe. So do you want to
Yeah,
kind of jump off with that?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I certainly beverage alcohol and from a consumption perspective, like there's no mystery going on in the industry right now about overall, I think, people are consuming less, call it drop for drop, less ethanol or whatever you want to call kind of the total alcohol actualization. But it's pretty striking when you compare what's happening in beer versus wine versus spirits from kind of a 40% equivalized case perspective. If you think about everything being as a 40% ABV product, which is a very spirits lens view, and equivalizing on those terms, you see, how, significant the kind of industry, I'd say headwinds are in some respects in terms of consumption patterns over the last couple of years. And I think that's, a reasonable time frame to sort of look at it.
Hmm.
And, with spirits being down in my sort of estimations, somewhere in that 4% range in terms of equivalized actual kind of drop for drop alcohol. Wine really seeing some challenges, with declines, more in the kind of 9% range probably over the last couple of years, compared to 2 years ago. And beer FMBs, ciders, etc., seltzers, that's kind of in that 6% range. And but at the same time, it's not all doom and gloom, right? That's a kind of a volume-based view of things, and people don't spend, volume. People spend with their dollars, and on those
Hmm.
terms, you see different trends in the industry. You do see that there's still a strong premiumization trend that's going on out there. There's some spots where you see some interesting bifurcations where, kind of high-low perspectives for different types of people out there. I don't like to refer to us as consumers because it just like puts me in the bucket of just like all I do is stick stuff in my mouth. Like it dehumanizes people at some level.
So we're gonna clip
Uh,
that.
Yeah. No, we're
Thank you.
drinkers. We're not consumers.
Right.
Drinkers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
drinkers. I mean, we are, and we're humans, and we're people with personalities, and everybody's a little different. And I just think that I don't like to think of things as just being purely consumers, right? It's very capitalistic that way.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's lame. So not based of you.
So not based.
Yeah. But spirits has managed to hold their own, and yeah, our RTDs. When you look at sort of trends in the spirit space, you see a net positive kind of growth in volume terms and in dollar sale terms. RTDs obviously have been the big growth driver, though, of the overall spirit space. And so when you kind of equivalize based on actual kind of drops of ethanol, and pure alcohol consumption, it has declined over the last couple of years.
Share of ethanol is a really important metric that we don't talk about a lot as much lately, I feel like in the past few years, but it is important because humans do only drink a certain amount per capita of ethanol a year. And so
Right.
the share of that and then convert that to dollars is important. And the spirits
Absolutely.
guys they're doing okay,
Right.
but they're also diluting the ethanol with RTDs.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously on a dollar per drop basis, it's also expensive, right? I mean, it's all of the cost associated with putting something in a smaller format can, you're diluting the actual fluid itself to some degree, right? With water and other flavorings, things like that. And in the net, you do see a decline in sort of overall consumption.
Right. And
Yeah, definitely.
diluting the price per unit, especially.
Yeah, on like a price per, in some respects, it's a price per unit, yes. But they are, they're also like they're not cheap, right? At some level too, on
Right.
a price per pure volume basis, it is, affordable in some respects. Once you sort of mix things, that's sort of maybe a little bit more fluid of a conversation, no pun intended.
Unless you're drinking just straight martinis all the time.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Which
yeah. It's not
there's a
bad.
place in this. There's a place in this world for a good martini. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Is it
It's
still
fantastic.
a martini if it's just Tito's?
Wait, what?
Is it still a martini if it's just Tito's?
Oh, yeah, yes. The answer to that,
That's-
Hannah, is yes. And it's the
I thought
best
you had
martini.
to have the vermouth.
No, screw vermouth.
Yeah, it's kind of
for weak.
gross. It makes you cry.
Yeah, it's the weak.
For the week.
I will disagree on this point, by the way. I love a martini with some vermouth in it.
Mhm.
If you can throw the dirty martini in there with a couple of olives, I think it's a fantastic beverage.
Yeah, extra fucking filthy for me. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, but I think that your point on kind of just kind of diluting the overall like ethanol volumes, it segued into kind of two different points. So we can take it either way, but I think there's some interesting points to be made about like channel equivalency. And then also just generational trends as well, and like how the price plays into that. So you can jump off wherever you want with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the channel perspective is always super interesting, in my opinion, especially in spirits, because it's so diverse. Like, I mean, almost every single state has some nuance law that relates to what happens in that state for spirit sales, especially. I mean, a NABCA state, a control state is not a control state is not a control state. I mean, you look at states like Michigan and Ohio and other states as well, they will allow essentially a lower proof spirit to be sold through, regular channels, through a grocery store or whatever, through food channels. And that threshold even on what that percentage is differs state to state. So it creates this pretty wild, sort of matrix of different channels and way people access spirit beverages state to state. Overall, definitely you look at kind of the on-premise approach and the declines that you're seeing in the industry. The on-premise is seeing that just as much, honestly, as you see in the off-premise environment. It did definitely pick up a little bit post-COVID, but I think that you're seeing some generational trends that probably fit into that to some degree. Like this is kind of an interwoven conversation, in my opinion. But you do see sort of the off-premise trends not being quite as negative as some of the on-premise trends are currently, where you have a little sharper declines, especially over the last 12 months period of time. That said, RTD spirits are a thing, actually, even in the realm of the on-premise, and increasingly some of those, especially the brands that are backed by companies that can really use their muscle to get products into bars and restaurants and places like that, they're growing there, and you're seeing that happen at an increasing rate right now, where some of those bigger, RTD spirit brands are really, showing strong penetration into the on-premise environment. I'm sure that takes a lot of investment, both of, kind of time and energy from people resources. And that is sort of one of the growth highlights, if you will, in the on-premise is in RTD spirits. With other products, not seeing that same trend. There's more kind of pronounced declines. Overall, the off-premise is off, depending on how you want to look at it over the last month or so, or last 12 months or so. Probably in spirit terms down like a couple of percentage points. And that's sort of an inclusive view of both Nielsen track channels plus the NABCA track channels.
It's a real conundrum, I think, for on-premise operators, because they do make more on a cocktail than they do an RTD. Yeah. I would think, just gross profit wise, although the time to serve is much quicker.
Right.
So,
right.
If you're really busy and you're just handing those cans over the bar, it probably is a good thing. If you're not so busy, you probably want to move people to a mixed drink.
Yeah. And there's also it seems like there also would be a storage issue too, right? I mean, again, sort of the volume aspect of it.
Totally. Yeah.
Like
I didn't think of that.
How many things can
Yeah.
you put into a cooler inside of a bar, right? It's not infinite, that's for sure.
Yeah. But I think like also you have to think outside the box in terms of like what sort of on-premise establishments,
Yep.
like because I'm thinking of like just cutting back on labor at like venues of any kind,
Yeah.
sports venues, concerts, whatever. And that's where I feel like the Cutwaters, I mean, these are two AB brands, so like the neutrals, like that's where they're probably getting their bread buttered, I would assume. And they're just
Yeah.
really, really high margin sales in those contexts. Like, I mean, you're paying like $20 for a 24-ounce thing or whatever. There's limits on
Yep.
sizing when it comes to spirits, but
Yeah, yeah, but they are consumed. I mean, you do see the numbers. You look at the CGA data from Nielsen. You see it in the numbers that they're definitely have a presence in bars and
like
nightclubs,
a
and we're
traditional
eating
bar.
focus. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely are they are there, and they are growing there actually quite rapidly. And but it is those kind of like the big players really tend to dominate the space there. I think that you look at
Hmm.
the on-premise environment for RTDs, and it's like 80% is kind of from those large companies, those large brands.
Yeah. So wait, we got to fill in the blank. Who is it, Harry?
That'd be Anheuser-Busch with Cutwater, like you said,
Hmm.
and then you've got Boston Beer Company
True,
also,
true.
and then you kind of have newcomers like Surfside, uh,
Hmm. More
doing
regional plays.
doing
Yeah.
some numbies. I call them
Numbies.
numbies. I don't care what y'all think about that. I like it, and and yeah, because nobody's better at getting distribution than Anheuser Busch and Boston Beer. They're both really good at it, and so yeah.
Well, I mean, remember Gallo has a big player in this
Yes, I
big
mean,
horse in this race as well.
I
Lead us
forgot
to
the
the.
biggest one.
I know. I'm like, we can't just talk about beer brands right now.
Sorry,
This is a spirits pod today.
sorry,
Yeah.
that's my bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Obvious.
Yes. Yes. But and NABCA also tracks that on-premise environment as well. And I can speak a little bit more in that realm to what you see in the on-premise through the lens of NABCA. And you still see growth in whiskey. Like, I mean, some of the major bourbon brands are doing very well in the on-premise and growing. Through the NABCA data, I can see things like Buffalo Trace and Woodford really, doing very well from the
Hmm.
overall whiskey space in the on-premise. And there is, no, those are pretty premium products and brands. And there is that sense of premiumization, which I think, not only do you see that in the on-premise, of course, you're seeing it in the off-premise as well.
It seems to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like cinnamon whiskey has kind of fallen off, hasn't it, in the on premise?
Yeah, and it has. And when you think about like some of the kind of general flavor trends, I mean, when you have headwinds, right, in an industry like we have right now, I don't necessarily like to think of them as headwinds, but the reality is if you're, it is something, the consumption patterns that are going on right now are something that affects pretty much every supplier. I don't, most companies are not immune to the current situation in the industry, across all of beverage alcohol, right, in the United States. But if you add a headwind like people being maybe a little bit concerned about sugar consumption, flavored products tend to be products that you're just like, that's just one more thing that you're trying to push up against. And looking at some of the data, in fact, on like flavored products overall, and this is kind of through the lens of the Nielsen data, you can see a pretty, marked decline. I mean, it flavored overall kind of flavored beverages, flavored spirit beverages are declining, and this is outside of RTDs to some degree. So like take that
Yeah. So we're
as
talking
the kind
about
of
vodka, flavored
correct.
whiskey.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. So thinking about those types of products, they're down like 4.7% over the last, 3 months or so, including like kind of the key holiday selling period when you would potentially see products, at a very high volume, right? It's very seasonal in the spirits industry as you get towards the end of the year. And all the numbers kind of I'm looking at right now today are inclusive of that entire time right before kind of Christmas and mid-December because it was such a goofy end of the year last year. But you see flavored products being down 4.7% versus the overall space, which is only down like 2.6% on volume terms. So that's a big, when you layer on an additional headwind, which I think that it's not so much that people are attracted or unattracted to flavored products. I mean, you see that RTDs are expanding. That is a flavored
Yeah.
beverage doing very well. But I think that what you're seeing a little bit is more of a kind of, hey, I don't need all the sugar in my life, and I'm gonna, cut back a little bit on that when I'm ordering a beverage.
Yeah, yeah. And most of these like RTD, seltzer, whatever brands that we've been talking about, they hit that key metric of like 100 calories,
Yeah,
5 grams of whatever, per serving. So
absolutely.
there's
Yeah,
there's a few that are like a little bit higher on the spectrum, but you kind of see that dichotomy play out a lot of different like better for you.
yeah,
It's like wine, it's like low alc is doing really well, no alc, and then like overproof quote unquote wine, like
for sure. For sure.
yeah.
And, just within the vodka space itself, which, is one of those products that wildly lends itself to flavor, I mean, it's like kind of built for that, right?
Hmm.
Flavored vodkas are down, roughly speaking, over the last 13 weeks, and this is looking at Nielsen data as well, down 7.8% in volume terms,
Hmm.
versus unflavored vodka, which is only down 2%. That's a pretty shockingly pronounced difference.
It turns out that
Yeah.
Tito was right not to get into that game. I mean,
Hey,
Yeah, yeah,
shout
so,
out David Jabor.
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah, David Javor at Twin Liquors he told Tito not to
At our,
do it. And
our conference a
yeah,
couple years ago, he said, "That's all me."
yeah. I
yep,
mean, God,
yep.
7 SKUs. I mean, anyway. I mean,
Ugh,
but
I
let's
know.
talk about. Let's talk about vodka.
Yeah.
Like vodka in general. It's. If am I wrong? It's kind of having a rough spot, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit. I think that we're starting to see some entrances in not really new entrants per se, but when you have a giant gorilla like Tito's and like fantastic product, and kudos to your point, kudos to Tito for putting out a product that, like hitting a sort of specific price range, hitting on the like kind of Americana of that brand in a really strong way, was incredibly differentiating. And like also you picked a product that you can go to market in pretty quickly, right? It doesn't take you 12 years or something in a barrel or whatever, 2 years, 3 years, any time in a barrel, right? In
Right.
order to create a product like that. And they've been very successful, grown for years and years now. And you're starting to, you're seeing other entrants in the way you would expect to see it. More regional plays, every little thing is sort of like a little fish eating at the big shark that's out there
Yeah.
in the water. I think it's pretty interesting to see the growth of a product. I was looking in the NABCA data as well, and you can see how Wheatley is. I think I want to make sure I get it right. I'm pretty sure
Wheatley?
it's Wheat. Yeah, it is Wheatley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and you see a product like that, which is named after the head distiller at Buffalo Trace, I believe, and they spent a lot of time, put a lot of like energy into creating, I think, a good story around that product. And you're seeing that like start to take some additional ground in the vodka space. But you see other products that are maybe, having some more challenges out there, especially kind of at that, sort of lower end of the pricing spectrum for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Like, I want Harry's perspective on this because I mean, I wasn't drinking during the like rise of Tito's, but I remember Tito's felt like very much a Texas regional play. Like it was kind of like the local guy. And then by the time I was like legal drinking age, it was you knew you're at like a nice bar if Tito's was like the well pour, like a house pour.
Right.
And so it's
Totally.
become so ubiquitous and like and
Yes. No, I
that's
mean
almost
my
created a new opportunity now.
he's from San Antonio. He was he's friends with my sisters who were in his grade. And so,
Yeah.
we've known we've known Bert forever. He spoke at our conference. He's very shy 'cause he doesn't speak at many, but he did speak at ours. I don't know, it was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's the accidental. I call him the accidental billionaire. But yeah, it was Texas, and then it just all of a sudden, really quickly, it went on fire nationwide, and he he invested heavily in airplane magazine ads, which they don't even have anymore.
I
He
know.
invested
Sky
like
Mall went down, but
yeah, no, but he knew like he figured out that like people who travel drink a lot more than average people. Also, he invested heavily in Las Vegas and like in certain markets that were high visibility, and and then he embraced dogs, and who doesn't love dogs? So yeah, brilliant story. But just like you said, John, you know, every brand has kind of a life cycle, a 20-year, if you want to call it a 20-year life cycle. And, you know, it was Grey Goose before that. And I'm not saying that
Right.
Tito's is going anywhere, but when
Right.
you're the biggest, everybody's biting at your heels. And that's what's happening right now.
Everybody, right? And stateside too, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the other play that you're going to continue to see. I think any product, especially in beverage alcohol, can be localized to some degree, and you root for the home team. I mean, beer is crazy like that in a great way. I mean, I live in Beervana up here in Pacific Northwest. It used to be Beervana. Right now, there's one, every town basically has a brewery, it feels like, that's out there. And in some respects, wonderful. Like, I think that's fantastic. I mean, if you can go in and get the local brew, it's such a great experience. And you continue to see that in the spirit space as well, where you have localization, continually being a trend as well, and seeing local brands open up. It's just harder to do though. Like, I mean, especially if you're gonna create something that needs to sit in a barrel for a while, it's not an easy thing to do overnight, and it might be at the end of that rainbow, you don't end up with a barrel of goodness.
Right. I mean, gosh, yeah. I mean, whiskey is so tough for that very reason. You have no idea what
Totally,
even what the market's going to look like 5 or 10 years from now, much less how
for
much to
sure.
make and put in barrel. You know, I've always said that if you know, the best place to start a new alcoholic beverage is always Pennsylvania. And the reason
Mm,
for that is because Pennsylvania is not only a control state, it's another country. The laws there are so different that you know, people like Budweiser and Tito's and Beam and Suntory, they don't have much pull there
mm,
because of the way that market's structured. And I think that's why Surfside is from there, Yingling's from there. You know, these brands got that you get a little bit of a head start if you start in Pennsylvania. There's a tip for you young people out there.
Yeah, and I love, I mean, one of the things I think I very much enjoy looking at the data, and find a lot of fascinating things from it. And there's no better data source than looking at the NABCA data. And if you have the ability in the spirits industry, obviously, and if you have the ability to launch a product into a state where you can get the level of detail, I mean, I literally, and I brought up some information just today. I was looking at, college town, the local liquor store in a college town, right? Like, you want to go to
yeah.
College Station, Pennsylvania, and the NABCO data affords you the ability to see at a wild amount of detail what the sales were at a particular, essentially what the sales were at a particular liquor store that might be near a college, that might be near the college campus, and what trends are going on there. And if you're trying to sell a product, you're trying to target certain, demographic populations, and really hone in on who you think your ideal client or customer is.
Hmm.
It's a tremendous asset. It's
Yeah.
not the easiest thing to do to sort of get your hands on it, and there's some hoops you have to go through in order to launch a product into a control state. But if you can line up the ducks, I think it's a
Yeah.
really fantastic way to go, personally.
No. Did you? So, I mean, if you're able to, like, everybody's trying to demystify what Gen Z is drinking, and looking at what a college town is buying will tell you what Gen Z is drinking.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you get out of
And
that?
yeah, so I did look at that. It's so funny. I was looking at it today a little bit. I mean, first of all, overall, there was a wonderful report that came out. If you've seen, like, I don't know how you pronounce it. I think it's Rabo
Bravo.
Research, or Rabobank or
Rabobank.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I covered
Um,
that.
did you? Oh, yeah, nice.
Obviously you don't read our publication.
I do not read all the publications. That is true. I wish I did. I apologize.
I'm
Thank you.
hurt.
I know. I'm a listening guy. I like the podcast.
Okay, well, Harry's happy.
Yes. I love when people say that.
Yeah, I love the podcast, Harry, by the way. It is really fun and super interesting every time I listen in.
Appreciate
But
that.
it's just it was interesting for me to see, you obviously covered it, Hannah, so apologies to you for that. But
That's all good.
it was super interesting to see what emerged from that in terms of households for people led by people under 30 years old, and just kind of the decrease in overall income spend by as much as a third since 2012, 2013 on alcohol beverages. Like that's a kind of a super meaningful statistics.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was like, I think even to be like an independent household, not living with your parents right now, like you just are so much more financially crunched to afford rent and utilities and car
Right.
insurance and all the things, So I wonder how it would break out with households with people still living at home,
Right.
But yeah, no, it's tough. Speaking as a
Yeah.
independent household under 30.
She's
For
asking
sure.
for a raise right now, John.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted.
Last time I was on the pod, I asked for a promotion. So
And she got it.
Nice. Hey,
Yeah.
all your dreams come true on the podcast,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Let's just
mostly
be clear.
because I deserved it years ago, and he just like forgot. Like he's like, "You've been here like what, a year?"
Like, wait, what's your name? No, I mean, what you say is exactly right. And, also, I think like when in my generation, when we were young, a lot of times we drank at home because we were bored, and you're not, kids aren't bored anymore because they have their phone, they have the internet, and they have video games, and all these activities that they can do without drinking.
Yep.
And I think that plays into it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. It was interesting. So I was looking at the State College, Pennsylvania, like the nearest liquor store to campus. It's kind of the biggest nearest liquor store in the campus. And, some interesting thing. First of all, down overall in sales. And this is a control state that, all spirit sales are going to go through NABCA, although there's been the change that Pennsylvania made to open up more outlets where lower proof RTDs can be sold. So that is like worth mentioning in the context of this. So some of that I'm sure is a shift in terms of channel. But you look at how strong RTDs are in that one particular liquor store, and it's like super meaningful. I think on the order of like, let's see, it's something like, it's like 12 or 13% of total dollar sales are just through RTD cocktails. And of course, you've got a brand like Surfside in that in that state and in that town that I'm sure is super popular. And every game day that goes on, I mean, that's the easy format for people to go to a tailgate party for, right? And to purchase and put in a cooler.
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying this, that I think that Pennsylvania is the single largest buying entity of liquor in the world, because the state buys all the spirits and runs it through the system. So
yeah, they own it,
and that's why they're always the head of the the control state. They always end up in jail. Like every 5 years you read about he got thrown in jail because he was taking bribes, whatever.
Yeah.
It happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
God bless them. Every
God
one
bless.
of them.
Yeah. But in dollar share terms, cocktails in that one bar, like they gained, over 2 points a share just in the last 12 months versus a year ago, which is a pretty massive share shift over a 12-month period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about tequila? Let's talk about tequila for a second.
I love tequila. Thank you, Harry, for bringing that up.
Everybody, say it with me.
Tequila.
Tequila.
Tequila. Yeah, instantly, right? You got to launch into the little song in the back of your brain
Yeah.
when you
Da,
say
da,
that,
da, da,
right?
da, da,
Yeah.
da,
Yeah,
da.
totally.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, Anecdotally, I'm a big tequila fan, and we
We
have a
can
house
tell by the
cocktail.
shirt.
Yeah, right. We have a house cocktail that I love to serve to everybody who comes over. It involves tequila and mezcal, all mixed in with a homemade shrub that we make. By the way, I'm 100% Pac Northwest with all my like earthy, fruity, homeadey, like all these things. Like I represent my people.
That's
He's
awesome.
crunchy. He's
Love the
crunchy.
coffee. Oh my gosh, I'm like super bougie with my coffee. And so, uh, but this drink is so good. So it's like we take a grapefruit Serrano shrub and we mix it with mezcal and tequila, and then like a squeeze of lime. So it's like it's a margarita variation. You can have it, on the rocks with a salted rim glass. But I'm telling you, you come over to my place, you get that cocktail, and everybody I've ever served it to was like, this might be the best cocktail I've ever had. It is phenomenal.
Every
Okay.
I it's everybody goes to John's house and gets heartburn, it sounds like to me.
That's fair. You might need a Zantac or whatever before you come over.
Dude, I don't get out of bed without taking a Zantac every day.
Wait, Zantac or Xanax? Sorry, different.
No,
different drug
Xanax
altogether.
is a different vibe.
Different one altogether.
No, I crumble that up and smoke it. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah. But the
You know
tequila
how to
space
take
is,
Zen.
yeah.
Xanax, scary.
Tequila is interesting right now. So you see this kind of like bifurcation a little bit that has emerged. And at the high end, of course, you've got, big ultra premium brands that are out there. When I look at the NABCA data, you can see, the success of a Don Julio out there going on right now. That's quite, palpable. I think there's a variety of different things probably driving that. I have heard anecdotally and did see from like an advertisement in the state of, I think it was Florida. It was like a Winn-Dixie ad or something, but they had come down on price quite a bit with sort of some couponing deals over the last few months. But still, that bifurcation is pretty pronounced, and I actually kind of think that's a healthy thing. Like when you see a space in spirits, I think of that as kind of being fairly healthy in some terms. It's a little bit of a sign that everybody, to some degree, it's not. And I would say this, like the low end isn't where the bifurcation. You see this sort of like in the premium tequila space, you're seeing some, big brands that have held ground that are still popular, but the even lower end brands than that are out there are the ones that are starting to decline a little bit. So I think it's like that premiumization upsell that people, have a desire to try the other brand, the next brand that's like, I wonder what that one tastes like. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's a healthy space where there's marked real product differentiation that's going on. It's a crafted product.
Yeah.
And that to me, I think that's why you see tequila sort of being the space of, kind of holding its ground a little bit more amongst and even growing in some cases amongst the spirit categories out there.
Yeah. I think tequila's had a hell of a like PR run in the last like 10 years. Like it used to
Oh,
be like, oh, I don't touch that stuff. Like it was, and I don't think I'm saying anything crazy new here, but like generally people have upgraded from the 1.75 plastic bottle to,
Yeah, I
something a
mean,
little nicer.
you could
And
thank Patron for that.
yeah,
They really came in and changed the game. I mean, Cuervo owned the market for so long, and it was all mid to low level. And
mhm.
the Paul Mitchell guy, and I apologize, I can't remember his name, but
yeah.
came in and said, "Hey, let's
John Paul DeJoria or
DiGiorno."
something?
Yeah, so yeah,
DiGiorno.
he's like, why do every other spirit has a super high end except for tequila, and why? And he came in and did it with Patron, and then you had Casamigos and blah blah blah, and Don Julio, and I think you're right. It is healthy that it's very bifurcated because it's tequila is also one of the few I guess bourbon is this way, but it's great as a mixer, like in a margarita or this cactus thing that John's doing at his house, which I don't recommend unless,
Unless
but
you
or
have
you
a
just
very robust digestive system.
yeah,
Oh, it's
or you drink
really
it
good. I'm
neat.
telling you.
You can drink it neat, but
Yeah.
also as a shot. I mean, a shot is neat, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
drinking a
But
shot
you're
is
not
different.
taking your nice, like, there's a whole category of like sipping tequila has emerged, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it wasn't, I feel like when I was first coming about as legal drinking age, that was not a thing. Like sipping tequila 20 years
No,
ago,
hell no,
not a thing.
nope.
No, for sure. Well, John, what are you most excited to talk about? What do you think that we can yap about?
Well, I think there's one more thing that's a dark corner in this whole spirits industry that never gets talked about.
Pull it out. Let's go.
All right, you ready for that? It's
Let's go.
global travel retail.
Uh,
Are you
Nobody
talking about
talks.
Are you talking about duty free?
Yes,
Wow.
I know, right? So,
that's a
uh,
dark horse. We haven't even talked about this on our prep
No.
calls.
And those guys are
exactly.
huge, right? I mean,
Huge.
it's a bigger business that I remember being shocked.
It is a shockingly big business. Billions upon billions of dollars internationally, globally, are go through global travel retail stores. And of course, I mean, think about what era we're in right now, even, in terms of our current administrative climate, like you just rewind the clock a couple months ago, and I'm sure there were a lot of people going, "Man, I can't wait to take an international flight again because that's going to be the place where I'm going to buy some spirits, right? Like that's going to help me avoid this whole trade fiasco that's
Right.
going on."
That's
Um,
true.
but overall, globally speaking, like wine and spirits are really growing in that channel and really over-indexing in growth compared to overall global spirits. In spirits alone, what I have seen in terms of like the 5-year CAGR associated with spirits globally is like 6%, but in
Hmm.
global travel retail, it's double that, 12%. And so that is a space, post COVID. Like think about, as more and more people grew into acceptance again of that, hey, I can take that international trip. That really opened up a lot in terms of sales and trends. Um, and tequila, this is what surprises me a little bit. Like I think of tequila as being a more kind of like North America oriented beverage in terms of its popularity. And I think that's generally true.
Hmm.
But you look at the number of countries we track. We have a really interesting solution with global travel retail. It's phenomenal, and I'm plugging it hard. But man, it's a really interesting kind of data set to work with because it's so complex. You have all these retailers at all these airports, and there's just like the data is really wildly complex with it, which is what makes it kind
Hmm.
of fun to work with. But tequila, if you look at countries growing, and these are like countries where the global retail stores sit. You look at countries growing versus countries in decline, and we track, like I'm talking about the top 50 or so. You have 45 that are growing in the tequila space versus 5 that were declining overall, globally speaking. And some of those are huge. I mean, you look at India as a market, and especially in the global travel retail space, that is a very significant amount of sales. And so it's really shown growth on a 12-month time frame globally, which I think is pretty wildly interesting, and unexpected
Yeah.
in some respects. So like, if you're a tequila
Have
producer out there, you think about the US market, but like there's a lot more out there than just the US market.
No, for sure. Have you been able to get a read on kind of like the most recent few months? Because I've been seeing some headlines that like international travel to the US has really dropped off with just how chaotic everything has been.
Yeah. We have not seen in our trends at least a whole lot of drop off from a travel perspective. And from a sales perspective, the trends that we were seeing in terms of growth, some have modified a little bit, but tequila in the last month at least still grew at a very significant rate in terms of countries that are growing tequila sales versus countries that were seeing declines in tequila sales.
Those guys that
Yeah.
run those duty free shops, uh, they're always billionaires. Like they, I don't know. I think you have to really be connected to own one. I don't think I don't think you just walk in to Gatwick Airport and say, I'm going to open a duty free shop. Here I am.
Yeah.
It's a political license, but yeah, interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. And, like you don't see, I mean, whiskey growth is sliding when we see that space. That's what's another thing that was interesting for me is looking at how over the last 12 months, whiskey, again, we had more countries that were growing versus not growing. But over the most recent months, that actually switched a little bit. And you saw more countries declining in terms of percentage change versus prior
Yeah.
year in the last month.
Are we talking like American whiskey here?
This is inclusive of all
Okay.
like global whiskey. So Scotch would be included, Irish whiskey is
Oh, okay,
included,
okay, okay.
etc. Japanese, yeah,
Yeah, that'd be an interesting read as well. It's just seeing
yeah,
like what types of whiskey are growing in different international markets, like where they're making
for sure,
inroads. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
like kind of like I mean I think the NABCA data in some respects. I mean, there's sort of these parts of the industry that don't get talked about as much because the data isn't always as readily available, but it's big. I mean, NABCA, as far as spirit sales goes, NABCA makes a very large portion of the total spirit sales in the United States. I mean, it's meaningful to the degree that you don't really want to ignore that data. And globally speaking, the global travel space is huge.
NABCA is National Association of Beverage Control Associations. Something like it's the control states, and
It's
it's
the
what
control states, correct?
probably 20-25%, I think,
Yeah, the
of
National
volume.
Alcohol Beverage Control Association.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I get the same way with it, don't worry.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
another thing, by the way, that Tito did was he was early on the NABCA train, and in
Mhm.
fact, that was really the only conference that you could be sure to see him at was the NABCA conference.
Have you been to the NABCA conference area, by the way, ever
Oh yeah,
or recently? Yeah.
yeah. I
Oh,
have not been in the last few years, but really since before COVID, so it has been a while. But I think that's the last time I saw Tito was at one of those
yeah.
NABCA. It's a great
It is,
conference. Yeah.
man. If you want to go taste spirits, like I don't know that there's a better conference you can go to.
Yeah.
I've never been to one where it was like that. I mean, every major in my almost every major and even not so major supplier is there with their best hooch, and
The best
Yes.
hooch.
it
Yeah.
is really
Interesting. I'm going to
Yeah.
my first NABCA this
really
month.
good.
So
Oh,
yeah,
you're gonna
Nice.
love it. They
Ugh.
call it it's selling liquor to cops because
they're the best
it's
customers.
because it's government employees there. It's
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it's I mean
Yeah.
NTSB is really the one where you're really selling liquor to cops. That one's even wilder. Boy,
I don't even know what you're talking about.
it's where it's the Association of State ABCs, alcohol beverage
Okay.
controls. So they have a conference every year, and it really is
Okay.
cops.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's so and so yeah, it's kind of a boondoggle. It's fun though. They
Dang.
get good
Yeah.
speakers.
Good speakers.
Love it.
Good. We're gonna go to prom. Are you going this year, John?
At
To
NABCA?
NABCA? Yeah.
Absolutely.
The theme is denim and diamonds for their
I know, denim
prom.
and diamonds. I feel like I'm halfway there already, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm
Dude,
like,
yeah.
I'm
I
on the path.
I wear my boots, my cowboy boots, like once a year, but I moved them across the country with me because I was like, I'm gonna pull those fuckers out. And but like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I am so ready. I just bought a denim jumpsuit the other day. I'm gonna slay at this prom.
Love it.
The
That is
conference, my outfit is gonna be fire.
I can't
please
wait, Hannah.
get
We're gonna enjoy ourselves there. It's gonna be
Let's go do
fantastic.
some square dancing.
100%.
please get some pictures of that so that we can put it on our company Instagram.
Yeah.
For sure. We gotta spice it up.
Yeah, well, yeah, we do. Yeah, John, just so you know, trying to get writers to take pictures when they travel for our Instagram is it's the pictures are horrible. They're like crooked. The lighting's bad. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Journalists, okay?
I
Yeah.
mean, print journalists, man. They
I know. You're so in your head, like you're thinking like, okay, where am I gonna find the story? Who am I gonna talk to? Like the crowd is
yes,
always in the way. Like, yeah,
yeah.
I'm working
Taking
on it.
No, you're right. Taking pictures is the last of your worries when you're
Yeah.
working the
I'm
beat.
failing as a freaking Gen Z. Like,
Well,
gosh.
John Mixon, it has been a delight to have you on BeerNet Radio. I hope some of your dreams have come true today. And
Indeed.
where can people get a hold? Do you want people to get a hold of you? Like
Sure.
where can they find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. That's a great way to connect with me.
Okay.
In that way. But I'm happy to give out my email address as well. You can reach me at john.mixon@telusagcg.com. So we are part of TELUS, which is a fantastic global company in technology, tremendous mission-driven organization. It's one of those, it's a company I've really enjoyed working for. You know, we give a lot back, a lot of philanthropy. We just started our month of giving, so it's like TELUS Days of Giving start May 1st, and people log their volunteer hours, do a lot of work with a variety of different volunteer organizations, and I do as well. So it's been a pleasure to work for this company. But yeah, you can reach me at john.mixon@telusagcg.com.
That's great. Yeah, I was on your website earlier before we got on the pod, and I was impressed. I mean, I've known of this company, but I don't think I realized how big they are and how extensive their reach is. So
Yeah.
well done. Well, thank you. Coming from Seattle, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of BeerNet Radio, and we will be back at you next week.